Story 1, Dead of Night, a Nevada trucking nightmare. It was 3 a.m., and the truck rig driver, Jake, was driving down an empty Nevada highway. The only sound was the hum of his engine and the occasional crackle of the radio. He had been driving for hours, and fatigue was starting to set in. Jake had been on this stretch of highway before, but he never liked it. It was desolate, with nothing but barren land as far as the eye could see. He always felt like something was watching him, lurking just beyond his vision. But tonight, that feeling was more intense than ever before. Suddenly, he heard a loud thud coming from the back of the truck. Jake felt a chill run down his spine as he slowed down the truck to investigate. He climbed up to the back of the truck and opened the doors. To his surprise, he found nothing out of the ordinary. Shaking his head, he closed the doors and climbed back into the driver's seat. But as soon as he began to accelerate, the truck started to shake violently, and Jake felt like it was going to tip over. He struggled to keep the truck on the road as it swerved from side to side. Suddenly, he saw something in the rearview mirror, and he slammed on the brakes. He saw a figure in the distance, standing still in the middle of the road. As he got closer, he could see that it was a woman, dressed in tattered clothing. Jake's heart pounded in his chest as he tried to swerve around her, but she didn't move. She just stood there, staring at him with cold, lifeless eyes. He could feel her gaze piercing through him, and he couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't human. He finally managed to get around her, and he breathed a sigh of relief. But the feeling of unease didn't go away. It only grew stronger as he drove on. As he continued down the highway, he started to hear whispers in his ear. They were faint at first, but they grew louder and more urgent. He couldn't make out what they were saying, but he knew that they were coming from the back of the truck. Jake pulled over to the side of the road and got out of the truck. He walked to the back and opened the doors again. This time, he saw something that made his blood run cold. There was a handprint on one of the boxes, made from a substance that he couldn't identify. He tried to shake off the feeling of dread and climbed back into the driver's seat. But as he started to drive again, the whispers returned. They were louder than before, and they were joined by the sound of scratching and tapping. Jake felt like he was going insane. He couldn't take it anymore. He pulled over to the side of the road and got out of the truck. He walked to the back and opened the doors again. This time, he saw something that made his heart stop. There was a woman inside the truck, dressed in the same tattered clothing as the one he saw on the road. She was pale and gaunt, with long, tangled hair that covered her face. She was scratching at the boxes, trying to get out. Jake stumbled back in horror and fell to the ground. He scrambled to his feet and ran back to the driver's seat. He tried to start the engine, but it wouldn't turn over. He looked back at the woman, and he saw that she was no longer scratching at the boxes. She was staring at him, and her eyes were glowing with an otherworldly light. Jake screamed and ran away from the truck as fast as he could. He could hear the woman's laughter echoing through the night air as he ran. He didn't stop until he was a safe distance away, and even then, he could still feel her eyes on him. He sat on the side of the road, trembling with fear. He didn't know what to do. He was miles from civilization, with no one to turn to. But then, he remembered his cell phone. He fished it out of his pocket and tried to dial for help, but there was no signal. He was completely cut off from the outside world. Jake didn't know how long he sat there, but it felt like hours. He was starting to lose hope when he heard a sound in the distance. It was a truck, coming down the highway. At first, he was hesitant to flag it down. After all, he didn't know who was driving it. But the thought of being alone with the woman in the truck was enough to make him take his chances. As the truck got closer, he could see that it was a big rig, similar to his own. He waved his arms and shouted for help, and the driver slowed down and pulled over. The driver was an older man, with a grizzled face and a friendly smile. He asked Jake what was wrong, and Jake told him everything. The man listened patiently, nodding his head as Jake spoke. When Jake finished, the man put a hand on his shoulder. "Don't worry, son," he said. "I know exactly what you're dealing with." Jake looked at him in disbelief. "What do you mean?" The man sighed. "This stretch of highway has been haunted for years. There have been countless sightings of ghosts and other paranormal activity." Jake couldn't believe what he was hearing. "What should I do?" The man thought for a moment. "I can take you to a nearby truck stop. It's the safest place for you right now." Jake nodded gratefully, and the man helped him into his truck. They drove in silence for a few minutes, and Jake couldn't help but feel like they were being watched. But finally, they arrived at the truck stop, and Jake breathed a sigh of relief. The man wished him luck and drove off into the night. Jake never forgot his encounter on that empty Nevada highway. He never drove that stretch of road again, and he always made sure to avoid driving at night. But he knew that he would never forget the woman in the truck or the man who saved him from her clutches. Story 2, The Devil's Digital Currency, a Bitcoin Millionaire's Horror Story. Jacob was a man who had it all. He was a Bitcoin millionaire, living the life of luxury. He had everything he ever wanted and more. But one day, it all came crashing down. The market crashed, and he lost everything. His once overflowing bank account was now empty, and he was left with nothing but debts. Desperate and alone, Jacob wandered the streets aimlessly, trying to figure out what to do. That was when he met the devil. The devil appeared before him, dressed in a sharp suit and a wicked smile. "I can give you everything you ever wanted, Jacob," he said. "All you have to do is make a deal with me." Jacob was skeptical, but he had nothing to lose. "What kind of deal?" he asked. The devil grinned. "I can make you a millionaire again, and all you have to do is give me your soul." Jacob hesitated for a moment, but the temptation was too strong. He signed the contract, and in an instant, he was back on top. His bank account was overflowing once again, and he had everything he ever wanted. But there was a catch. The devil demanded that Jacob do his bidding. He would send Jacob on errands, asking him to do unspeakable things. Jacob had no choice but to obey, lest he lose everything once again. As time went on, the tasks became more and more sinister. Jacob found himself committing crimes, hurting innocent people, and even taking lives. The guilt weighed heavily on him, but he was trapped in the devil's grip. One day, the devil appeared before Jacob with a new task. He wanted him to take the life of a young woman, an innocent soul who had done nothing to deserve such a fate. Jacob couldn't do it. He refused. The devil was furious. He reminded Jacob of the contract he had signed, and the consequences of breaking it. But Jacob stood his ground. The devil vanished in a cloud of smoke, and Jacob was left alone, terrified of what was to come. He knew that he had made a terrible mistake, and that the devil would not let him go easily. That night, Jacob went to bed, but he couldn't sleep. He heard strange noises coming from his closet, and whispers in his ear. He tried to ignore it, but it was too much. Suddenly, the door to his closet burst open, and the devil appeared before him once again. This time, he was not alone. He was surrounded by a legion of demons, their eyes glowing red with malice. Jacob screamed, but it was too late. The demons grabbed him, pulling him into the closet and dragging him down into hell. And so, Jacob's soul was lost forever, trapped in the devil's grasp. His greed had led him down a dark path, and there was no going back. Years went by, and the house where Jacob had made his deal with the devil was left abandoned. No one dared to go near it, for it was said to be cursed. But one night, a group of teenagers decided to explore it, seeking thrills and adventure. They entered the house, unaware of the horrors that lay ahead. As they made their way through the darkened rooms, they heard strange noises and saw mysterious shadows moving in the corners of their eyes. Suddenly, the devil appeared before them, his eyes glowing with fury. "Who dares to enter my domain?" he growled. The teenagers screamed and ran, but it was too late. The devil and his minions were upon them, dragging them down into the depths of hell. And so, the house remained abandoned, a place of terror and death. No one dared to enter it, for they knew the fate that awaited them. But one day, a woman named Emily moved into the small town nearby. She was a writer, looking for inspiration for her next horror novel. When she heard the rumors about the cursed house, she knew that she had to investigate. She went to the house, and as she entered, she felt a chill run down her spine. She could feel the darkness that permeated the air, and she knew that she was in a place of unspeakable evil. As she made her way through the house, she heard strange whispers and saw shadows moving in the corners of her eyes. But she was determined to uncover the truth. Finally, she came to the room where Jacob had made his deal with the devil. She saw the contract lying on the ground, and she picked it up, reading it carefully. Suddenly, the door to the room slammed shut, and the devil appeared before her. "What do you want?" he growled. Emily stood her ground. "I want to know the truth," she said. "I want to know what happened to Jacob." The devil grinned. "He made a deal with me, and I collected his soul. And now, I will collect yours too." Emily was terrified, but she refused to back down. "I won't let you take me," she said. The devil lunged at her, but Emily was ready. She pulled out a cross from her pocket and held it up, and the devil recoiled in fear. Emily knew that she had to act quickly. She grabbed the contract and tore it to pieces, breaking the devil's hold over Jacob's soul. The devil screamed in anger, and he vanished in a cloud of smoke. Emily knew that she had defeated him, but she also knew that she had to leave the cursed house before it was too late. As she walked out of the house, she felt a sense of relief wash over her. She had faced the devil himself and emerged victorious. But as she walked away, she couldn't help but wonder. Was the devil truly gone, or was he just biding his time, waiting for his next victim to come along? The small town remained quiet after Emily's encounter with the devil, and the cursed house was left alone once again. But every now and then, a brave soul would venture inside, seeking adventure and excitement. And every time, they would hear strange whispers and see shadows moving in the corners of their eyes. They knew that they were not alone, that the devil was still there, waiting for his next victim to come along. And they knew that they had to be careful, for the devil was always watching, always waiting, always hungry for souls to claim.